How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from the SpongeBob 1000. Today is December 27, 2021, and today we're going to focus on the couple of snowstorms that are going to move through the Rocky Mountain ranges of the United States, as well as our next potential major snowstorm for the Midwest and potentially the Northeast into later this weekend. And we'll also talk about our next major severe weather threat in the Southeast that could bring damaging winds, large hail, and possibly isolated tornadoes. Well, before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current radar for the lower 48, and we do have a couple of snow showers and a little bit of wintry mix going on in Pennsylvania and upstate New York. However, these showers are very isolated. We don't really have a very well-defined area of precipitation in the Northeast, as there just isn't enough lift in the atmosphere in the Northeast to induce a large area of precipitation. And the low pressure that's associated with some of these rain showers and snow showers is currently in the Northeast is well up to the north in Canada. So of course it's missing a lot of that convergence and that lift associated with that low pressure system for any sort of a large precipitation area to develop in the Northeast. So this isn't much of a worry, but don't be surprised if you do see some wintry mix or sleet in some areas in the Northeast and maybe some rain showers further southward. And interestingly enough, we do have a small area of rain showers because while there isn't a ton of instability, there is a little bit of cool and warm boundary located right around the Ohio River Valley, and it's creating just a little bit of thunderstorm activity. None of these thunderstorms are severe, but so it isn't much of a worry, but don't be surprised if you get a sudden downpour right just south of the Ohio River Valley associated with these thunderstorms. And if we were to move further westward, we do have areas of isolated snow showers throughout the Rocky Mountain ranges, and we're seeing some heavy snow in Salt Lake City right now. However, while this low pressure system does currently look weak, or this area of snow showers doesn't look very well defined, that's quickly about to change as this trough moves eastward, because not only will this evolve eventually into a major snowstorm for the Midwest, but we could potentially see a major severe weather in the Southeast associated with this trough. And we're going to see a continuation of troughs coming in through the Pacific Northwest, and we're seeing another trough move through the Pacific Northwest at this time, and it's starting to bring some snow in Seattle, and it's pretty much right at Portland's doorstep. So you guys right around the Pacific Northwest coast could expect some accumulating snowfall, which you typically don't see for most of the year, so make sure to prepare for that. But now let's take a look at the GFS model to see what the United States should expect in the future. So first we're going to take a look at the Midwest, because of course you guys are this snowstorm is pretty much right at your doorstep, as the low pressure that's going to be associated with this major snowstorm in the Midwest is currently located right around the Rocky Mountain ranges just to the west of the Midwest at this time, and it's quickly moving eastward. And while you don't see it in the radar, there's a lot of cold air that's going to be behind this low pressure system, and that will create an unstable environment for a little bit more of a powerful surface low to develop right around the Midwest. And we're going to see the southwesterly to southerly winds bring a lot of that warm, moist environment further northward that's pretty much developed right around the Gulf of Mexico, and we're gonna see it encounter a cooler air mass for a lot more convection and snowfall to occur in the Midwest. So if we were to continue to move forward, we're gonna begin to see snow just before the 24-hour mark right around Des Moines, where you're seeing some snow showers, and we see this low pressure system quickly develops, and we do see a much larger area of precipitation where we are seeing a little bit of heavier snowfall right around the Chicago area. As in Chicago, this could be one of your first times you will experience accumulating snowfall for this winter, and it's far from the last most likely, but you're going to see some accumulating snowfall associated with this low pressure system. And we're going to see snow as well in northern Indiana, right around northern Ohio could see some snow, and right around Cleveland. And you see the snow could be heavy at times, especially if you're very close to the rain snow line. And we're even seeing the snow further impact areas further westward, such as Minnesota is getting involved, Wisconsin is getting involved. It isn't as heavy further westward, more towards Wisconsin, but you still will experience some accumulating snowfall associated with this low pressure system as a result of a strong southerly flow, bringing a lot of that moist air further northward. And as it encounters a cooler air mass, we're seeing a lot more lift for larger area precipitation to develop rather than how it's looking right now, where we're just seeing a bunch of scattered showers throughout the Rocky Mountain ranges. So you need to prepare for snow, and even if we were to continue to move forward, this will impact areas closer to the northeast as well, where northern Pennsylvania, southern upstate New York will get involved, as well as portions of New England. And I wouldn't be surprised if that rain snow line does lie further southward to where areas maybe closer to the New York City metropolitan area could see some snow falling. While currently the forecast is no accumulation, you can't rule out the chance that we do see a little bit cooler temperatures than average to allow for some snowfall right around New York City. And when we're talking about a snow event like this, where you're relatively close to the rain snow line, you especially don't want to make any guarantees regarding the forecast, because any small variation in the temperature could make a big difference in terms of how much snow you experience. While the most likely scenario still is that New York City won't receive any accumulating snowfall, don't be surprised if at the very least you do see maybe some snowflakes falling right around New York City area. But in the areas you should expect snow in the Northeast, expect it in southern New England, potentially as far east as Boston, but more likely it'll be more focused in on Massachusetts and Connecticut when it comes to New England. And of course, upstate New York and the northern portion of Pennsylvania will get involved in some accumulating snowfall. And you're probably wondering at this point, well, how much snow should you expect? So based on what the GFS model is currently forecasting at this time, so if we were to take a look at the total snowfall accumulation based on the GFS model, you do see that we mostly see an area of 3 to 6 inches. This extends as far west as Des Moines and as far east as Scranton, Pennsylvania, where you're in this large area, you should expect 3 to 6 inches. And like the GFS is showing, you could experience a little bit more than that in isolated areas, such as right around the Mississippi River Valley and between Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa. This could be the area where you do receive over 6 inches of snow, as that seems to be the sweet spot where both the main reliable computer models want to take the most snowfall, and we could see isolated amounts of over 6 inches, potentially further eastward as well, maybe closer to Indiana or Ohio. And if we were to take a look at the snowfall forecast for Northeast, you do see that upstate New York, southern upstate New York, and the northern portion of Pennsylvania is experiencing 3 to 6 inches of snow, while the rest of New England and Northeast, it's primarily 1 to 3 to mostly a dusting. We have to be aware as well that this snowfall accumulation forecast is assuming that 1 inch of precipitable rainfall equates to 10 inches of snow, which is far from being that accurate. Well, I shouldn't say far, but it isn't very. You should take this forecast with a grain of salt, because that's not always the case where 1 inch of rain equates to exactly 10 inches of snow. So there could be a decent variation between the amount of inches the GFS model expects and what actually happens, especially since the GFS model doesn't forecast how much snow is actually accumulates on surface, rather how much snow pretty much falls out of the sky, and assuming that it automatically accumulates, which is far from always the case, because of course the ground temperature needs some time to cool down before we begin to see snow accumulate, especially in the warmer areas. So we do need to take this snowfall forecast with a slight grain of salt, but I'd say this will be the most likely scenario, and you should prepare for a snowstorm that will dump around 3 to 6 inches between most areas pretty much just to the east of Des Moines and just to the west of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Right between those two cities, that's where you should expect 3 to 6 inches of snow. And further northward, mainly expect 1 to 3 right around Minneapolis. Green Bay could get 1 to 3, but northern Minnesota could get a little bit more. And you might be wondering, how does the European model agrees with it? And for the most part, it does. If we were to take a look at what the European model is forecasting, they're almost completely identical, but there are definitely some key differences. Like, for one thing, we're seeing that 3 to 6 inch category a little bit further southward in the European model's case rather than the GFS model's case. So the European is expecting a little bit larger of an area of heavier snowfall in the Northeast, but for the most part, it's pretty spot on. And you might be pointing out that, well, how about this? How about the purple that's located in northern Minnesota? The GFS model isn't exactly forecasting 6 to 12 inches of snow, unlike the GFS. However, this European model run is still pretty much calculating the previous snowstorm that just passed today. So it isn't exactly the total that you'll receive from this next coming snowstorm. It's just going to add on to the snow you already were expected to receive based on the GFS model. I mean the European model, since the European model run still needs to update a little bit to not include the snowfall accumulation of this previous snowstorm that passed. So still expect 3 to 6 inches especially in northern Minnesota, and 3 to 6 inches for the most part, like I said, between Des Moines, Iowa to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Between that area, expect 3 to 6 inches. Now you might be wondering what could potentially change the forecast, such as and what's the uncertainty of this forecast. At this point, I'd say the certainty is pretty high. Both of the main computer models are pretty much in nearly exact agreement with each other regarding the snowfall accumulation and the track forecast. And also, we're only between 24 to 48 hours out from this event, and typically that's pretty much when most forecasters have the forecast pretty much locked on, that it's pretty certain at that point that it'll remain at least around the ballpark of the forecast. There definitely are exceptions. Like, we have seen snowstorms that came out of nowhere even when there wasn't a snowstorm forecasted 1 to 2 days out. But at this point, it's the most likely scenario. We should expect 3 to 6 inches of snow in this area, but don't be surprised at maybe small variations depending on the track of the storm, which largely depends on how significant the jet stream dip will be, because that will determine the track and as well the amount of invincibility, and as a result that will impact the precipitation rate associated with this low pressure system. But at this point, this is the most likely scenario you should expect. Now, you're probably wondering, what else could happen in the future? Well, we need to pay close attention to a severe weather threat that could occur as well associated with this low pressure system moving eastward, because if you were to continue to move eastward, like I said earlier, there's going to be a lot of cold air associated with this low pressure system, and a decently sized moderately northwest winds flowing from the western side of this storm. Now, the severe weather won't necessarily be exactly correlated to this first low pressure system moving through, but it's gonna pretty much lead the way when it comes, or pretty much set up a severe weather threat for this next low pressure system, because it's gonna bring a decently strong northwesterly flow that will create an unstable environment, just enough for this next low pressure system to work with, and that would create our next severe weather threat. As you can see, if we were to take a look at this low pressure system on the heels of this next one, as a result of this pronounced jet stream dip, we sort of see a mid-level trough develop right around the Midwest, and that creates some severe weather throughout the southeast, the south central area of the southeast, and right around the Mississippi River Valley pretty much. And if we were to continue to move forward, we do see a line of severe weather impacting Mississippi, impacting Alabama, and this is something you guys want to pay close attention to. And even areas further eastward or northward, you could experience some thunderstorms associated with this trough. Now, the current consensus is that this won't necessarily be an extreme severe weather threat or extremely major, as it seems like the tornado threat, for one thing, is going to be limited with this severe weather outbreak, which is certainly good news. And it's pretty much as a result of weeks surface winds compared to the winds aloft in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and that should limit the severe weather threat because, of course, when it comes to the tornadic activity, you want to it pretty much requires a high amount of wind shear, and it doesn't seem like the wind shear will be necessarily high enough for a major severe weather threat to occur, but there's still a pretty good possibility you will experience damaging winds and large hail as a result of the amount of convective available potential energy you're going to experience. So if we were to take a look at that, the surface space CAPE, or convective available potential energy, measured in joules per kilogram. So if we were to take a look at that moving forward, we do see a little bit of convective available potential energy right around the Gulf of Mexico, as pretty much that will lead the way in creating a potentially major severe weather threat, because of course it's going to have plenty of moisture and latent heat associated with that moisture absorbed from the Gulf of Mexico that will allow for a lot of lift to occur in the atmosphere more than usual, and that pretty much creates severe thunderstorms, because when the lift is so rapid, the air on the surface wants to fill in for the lack of air pressure, and as it does so, that creates the damaging winds associated with the thunderstorms, and as a result of a high amount of lift, that creates hail, because the extremely strong updrafts force a lot of the rain droplets in the sky to pretty much stay aloft in the atmosphere where it's much colder, and that's how the rain coming from the sky or the condensation turns into ice, and that's why we experience hail. And you see that we're going to see quite a bit of convective available potential energy right around the Wednesday time frame, where we could see readings of 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is a lot of available convective energy in the atmosphere in the southeast, and that would lead to our next major severe weather. If we were to take a look at the wind shear associated with this next potential severe weather, because that's going to be another thing we're going to need to pay close attention to, you see that there's going to be strong wind shear overall throughout the United States, which is typical during the winter, since we of course experience a lot of instability, unlike during the summer where there isn't a ton of instability, since everywhere in the United States it's warm. But if we were to move forward, we do see a lot of wind shear, but it isn't a ton to where it'll create a major severe weather. You could probably tell that we don't really see the red wind shear focused in right around the Mississippi or Louisiana area, which pretty much means that there won't be enough wind shear for a major tornado threat to occur. But still, as a result of the large convective available potential energy located in that region, you guys still could experience a very potent severe weather threat when it comes to damaging winds and large hail. So that's definitely something you guys want to keep in mind. This should happen right around the Wednesday time frame, so be aware of that, right around the Mississippi River Valley and potentially places further eastward and westward as well. But in terms of what else you guys need to pay close attention to throughout the United States for the next 5 days, we're of course going to keep watching the snowstorms throughout the West Coast. And in California, right around the Sierra Mountain ranges and Lake Tahoe, you guys experience close to 10 inches, not 10 inches, 10 feet of snow, which is just mind-blowing. I hope everyone over there is safe. And you're probably wondering if we'll see much more snowfall. And relatively speaking, we won't. And I'm saying relatively speaking because we just received 10 feet of snow, and we're gonna experience maybe around 1 to 2 feet more in the higher elevations of California over the next 5 days, which to most people that's considered an extremely major snowstorm. But relatively speaking to what the Sierra Mountain ranges have been experiencing, which is close to 10 feet of snow, I think that's definitely much better, relatively speaking. So 1 to 2 feet of snow should be expected throughout California, as there won't be troughs as powerful moving through or as many troughs moving through. We do have this next trough moving through, but it won't dump precipitation or snow that heavy, as that low pressure system isn't necessarily powerful. And another low pressure system should move through the Pacific Northwest, but should move to the east of California. So you guys in the upper higher elevations will miss out on most of the snow. But it becomes interesting as that same low pressure system moves eastward, because we could see a major snowstorm develop right around the Midwest. And you see, based on what the GFS model is saying, we do see heavy snow associated with that low pressure system right around Des Moines, Iowa, and we do see heavy snow in Wisconsin, and even to the northeast we're seeing some mixing and heavy snow throughout New England, as this would be considered a major snowstorm for you guys, as there's going to be quite a significant jet stream dip, which could lead to our next major snowstorm throughout the Midwest and Northeast, as this will pretty much develop as a result of this low pressure system moving southward through the Pacific Northwest, and this other low pressure system that's located just to the south of California. And that convergence between the heat associated with this low pressure system further southward and the cooler air mass that's associated with this low pressure system further northward, that will create a very unstable environment for the Midwest for potentially major snowstorms to occur. But there's still a lot of uncertainty, because I'm going right around 5 days out, so the forecast is certainly subject to change. What really will determine the track really depends on the timing, because if this low pressure system that's further northward moves a little bit faster, then we should see this storm develop a little bit faster, and as a result, it'll create a more powerful snowstorm for the Midwest, since the cooler than average low pressure system, it pretty much combines with the low pressure system for southward a little bit earlier, so it has more time to rapidly intensify. However, it also depends on where exactly that jet stream dip will be to determine the power of the storm, and also the rain snow line will be another big issue. Really all depends on position of this ridge, so as yet to be seen. We need to wait several days before we could jump to any sort of conclusion, but this would be considered extremely major for you guys in the Midwest and Northeast, so that's something to keep in mind. And you might be wondering, if this snowstorm were to come for fruition, what should I expect when it comes to snowfall accumulation? So this is how the snowfall accumulation looks over at least the next 3 days. If we were to continue to move forward, you're going to see that a large area of the Midwest, closer to Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and Iowa, you would experience over a foot of snow or close to a foot of snow. And we're even seeing maybe close to a foot of snow in the Northeast associated with this next low pressure system. And the European model agrees with this for the most part, but we still have to wait and see regarding the forecast where exactly that ridge will be located, because that will determine where that rain snow line will be. And the timing of when those two low pressure systems converge will be important in terms of how rapidly this will develop, but we just need to wait and see once that happens. And here's where there's a severe weather area. You should expect the most major severe weather, and you see that there's a slight risk right around Mississippi and Alabama, but that's more a slight risk, more leans towards a moderate risk. So you need to pay close attention to potentially damaging wind threat. Large hail is certainly a possibility, and don't rule out potentially the isolated tornado, because while the wind shear will be relatively light in the southeast, there's still gonna be at least some wind shear for maybe an isolated tornado to develop, so you don't want to rule that out either. But taking a look now at the Arctic Escalation over next week, which really gives a good idea of what to expect over the next 2 weeks when it comes to conditions in the winter. And you see that we're going to remain in a negative phase till maybe mid-January, where we could rebound a little bit, but most of the computer models still are favoring us remaining in an Arctic Escalation even closer to mid-January, with some outliers going into the positive range. So there is a larger possibility of cooler temperatures than average and snowier than average conditions as a result of negative Arctic Escalation. So we need to keep that in mind going into this week. Now, taking a look at my snowfall forecast over the next 5 days, I'm expecting 6 to 12 inches right around the Chicago area associated with these next two snowstorms moving through. At least this first snowstorm, I didn't include the snowstorm that could happen this weekend. So you need to prepare for heavy snowfall associated with this next low pressure system, which should be major, and a large area of over or close to a foot in the west coast. Severe weather you need to pay close attention to. And yeah, this is my forecast for the United States when it comes to snowfall accumulation. But I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you like more weather-related content, and I hope you guys all have a great day. And again, I thank you guys for watching.